Hi, everybody. Welcome to another installment of MCAN's Power Half Hour. So we have a whole bunch of guests with us here today, and we're going to be talking about anaerobic digestion. So we have David Duest, who's here from the Deer Island facility, which most folks fly over when they're leaving Boston or coming into Boston. We've got Amy from the Clean Energy Center, the Mass Clean Energy Center. And we've got John from the Mass DEP, or Department of Environmental Protection. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining us today. And what I thought we could start out by doing is just tell us a little bit about what each of you does and what your agency or organization does. So David, do you want to start?
All right, thank you, Carol. My name is Dave Duest. I'm the Director of Wastewater Treatment for the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, MWRA, fondly known. We're a wholesale supplier of water and sewer services for 60 different metropolitan Boston area communities, handling water and sewer services for 2.3 million people, or almost 34% of the population of the state of Massachusetts.
Wow, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy, do you want to tell us a little bit about MassCEC?
Sure. MassCEC is a publicly funded agency dedicated to accelerating the development of renewable energy in Massachusetts. We have a division for helping to deploy technology that's already commercialized, and that's where I work. And I manage a program that we call Commonwealth Organics to Energy, which supports developers of anaerobic digestion projects and other technologies that might convert organic matter into energy.
Great. And you guys also have a fantastic intern program.
Yes, we do.
We have wonderful interns that we get through that program, so thank you for that as well.
That's great.
John, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Department of Environmental Protection?
Sure. So Mass DEP is a state agency responsible for ensuring clean air, clean water, safe waste management across the state. My role at Mass DEP is to oversee our programs for business and institutional waste reduction, recycling, and composting.
Great. All right, so we are here today to talk about anaerobic digestion, which most folks watching might not know anything about. And so I thought maybe what we could start out by talking about is just what is anaerobic digestion. Dave, you've got a really big anaerobic digester, so maybe we'll start with you.
So anaerobic digestion, put it simply, is a biological process where we actually cultivate bacteria to actually do the work for us. And what it does is it actually breaks down organic material into undigestible material, which gets further treated in our pelletizing plant, made into a fertilizer. But more importantly for this topic is really the generation of a green energy known as a biogas or digester gas. It's a low-value natural gas, but it's actually very valuable to MWRA to the tune of $18 to $22 million worth of energy offsets in our operation. So it's actually a very powerful, very useful operation for sustainable practices.
Fantastic. And I think we've got a slide, actually, if we could have that up, slide 1. Yeah, so that is what the basic system looks like. You see you've got organic inputs, and that can be either sewage or cow power, as is one type of input, or compost. And then you make gas, and you also make, as Dave mentioned, what do you call it, an additional product?
Indigestible waste.
Okay.
Anaerobic digestion actually operates very much like the human body, breaking down food material, food sources, into usable products. And obviously the body needs it for energy,
Right.
but then it does also have to expel waste. And very similar to the human body, we do have material that we have to get rid of as well.
Right, okay. And John, would you tell us a little bit about, I know that we were talking on the phone about sort of composting and anaerobic digestion, and they're obviously two different processes, and they each have their advantage in terms of what people would do with their household waste versus what they put down the toilet. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. At Mass DEP, we're excited about both composting and anaerobic digestion, and we think they both present valuable opportunities. Composting provides a lot of benefits in in taking nutrients and cycling them back into our soil, which helps our agricultural production. Anaerobic digestion has the added benefit of producing clean power here locally. And at the same time, sometimes anaerobic digestion byproducts can also be used as a fertilizer product as well. So there are potentially multiple benefits that can be achieved.
And about how much power comes out of, I mean, I know it's obviously very, very different, but like, let's say for a big system like yours, how many, do you know how many megawatts you guys produce?
Yeah, we actually produce on average about 4.5 megawatts of power every single day, but we also use it to generate heat for the facility. We heat our entire 160-acre facility with that digester gas.
Right, and I know that was something, Amy, that you were mentioning, is that benefit of not only are you getting the electricity or the methane to make the electricity, but you're also getting the heat, and that's true in other systems as well, yeah?
Right, so the gas, as Dave said, is like natural gas, and it can be used in an engine, and the engine creates electricity, but a lot of engines also put off heat too, and you can capture the heat and put that to good use. Or you can just use the gas in a boiler and use it for heating purposes as you would natural gas. But to go back to your earlier question about, you know, how much is there, there are other digesters in the state in addition to Deer Island. They're all much, much smaller. Collectively, they probably total up to about an equivalent output as what Deer Island does. So you know, statewide, we'd say about 7,800 households could be powered by the combination of Deer Island and all the other smaller digesters.
And those are the ones that already exist, the other digesters?
Those are the ones that are already in operation. And add to that electrical output, you could also probably heat about 3,600 houses.
All right, well, that's going to start sounding really important if we have another winter like the one before last.
Right.
So I know that one of the things, when I'm a big proponent of anaerobic digestion, I think it's really cool as an energy source. And when I'm out there talking to folks in cities and towns about it, sometimes I hear concerns about, oh, isn't it smelly? Or, you know, isn't a digester an eyesore? Or couldn't it possibly blow up? Or, you know, those kinds of concerns. John, do you want to talk a little bit about sort of ways to address those concerns, or what's realistic about them and what's not?
Sure, absolutely. So those are exactly the types of issues that we oversee in our regulation and permitting of anaerobic digestion facilities.
Okay.
So, you know, making sure they have the equipment and the procedures in place to manage and control odors, ensure that they have safety protocols and procedures in place, ensure basically that they're well-managed facilities that are going to run well and be good neighbors to the people around them. And that can certainly be done very effectively at anaerobic digestion facilities. Most of the ones that we have do have all of their material delivered via sealed tanks. So it's not as if you're dumping material out on the ground and having it sit around. So it's actually being piped directly into digester vessels. So there's not a whole lot of material sitting around or anything like that.
Right, so you don't have like open pits of compost or anything like that?
No, we don't. No, I would say, you know, by the way, we would, you know, we look to do the same type of thing with compost facilities as well. So to make sure they're following good practices to manage and control odors.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that from being at the Deer Island facility, I mean, it's all sealed up. There is one spot where you can smell a little methane, but other than that, it just doesn't seem, I was expecting it to be a little grosser, honestly.
No,
it seems very clean.
Yeah, we actually pride ourselves on being a good neighbor to the town of Winthrop. We want to make sure that all odors are captured within our facility and then handled appropriately. With anaerobic digestion, everything, like John said, is fully sealed, very well engineered. You know, with any technology, though, it does require a well-trained, educated staff to make sure that they manage the facility appropriately. They maintain it very well so that you keep it safe, because obviously that's a critical part of any operation.
Right. And Amy, can you tell us a little bit about some of the, I know you and I were talking about some of the other benefits in terms of it doesn't just produce heat and the gas to make electricity, but there are a lot of other benefits in terms of taking stuff out of the waste stream and that sort of thing.
Sure. So anaerobic digesters are also used on farms. and they are a great way of managing the manure from dairy cows. If manure is spread on the ground in various locations or under certain weather conditions, it can run off and get into streams and cause water quality issues in streams. So taking that manure and putting it in an enclosed vessel helps with water quality adjacent to the farm. It also reduces odor for the neighbors of the farm. So it's considered a definite plus in the odor category. And then what some wastewater treatment plants and some farms do with their digesters is also take in these food scraps and co-digest the food waste with the sewage sludge or the manure. And the food waste actually has higher methane generating potential than the manure or the sewage, and so you get more energy out of the system than with just the manure or sewage alone. And then at the other end, Dave was talking a little bit about the co-products that come out. Farms can use that material as a fertilizer. It can be dried and stored as a fertilizer as well, depending on the type of digester. Some farms can use that material as bedding for their animals. They dry it, they take out the moisture, and there's a lot of fiber that goes into it, and a lot of fiber just passes right through. And they can use that fiber as a bedding material instead of, say, sand or wood chips that they would have to import.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I know. I realized that I should have asked you to bring a bag because you have that nice bag
Right,
that
yeah,
we saw the
fertilizer
first
bags,
tour that
yeah.
we did.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, maybe what we should do is we've got a couple of images of anaerobic digesters that are in Massachusetts. So yeah, there we go. There's one. The gold where the rainbow ends.
Right, that's the Jordan Dairy Farm in Rutland.
Okay.
So the dome on top of the tank is where they store the gas that comes out of the digestion process.
Great.
And then there's a little red building behind that you can't see that houses the generator where the electricity is made.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then we've got another picture. There we go. And there's actually somebody who's about to do some inputting into the system. Am I right? Is that who sent me that
Right,
picture?
I did. So
Okay.
that's a tanker truck that's delivering a ground up liquefied food waste, and it's going to go by a hose from the truck directly into a storage tank. So it doesn't come out into the air. Nobody smells it.
Right, right. And actually, so speaking of food waste, John, if you want to tell us a little bit about, I know that the Department of Environmental Protection has a food waste ban for large users, and if you can, or organics ban, I'm not sure exactly how we're supposed to talk about it, but if you could tell us a little bit about that and how that relates to anaerobic digestion, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. So in Massachusetts, we have waste disposal bans for a number of recyclable and compostable materials, and we have for some time. Most recently, in 2014, we implemented our commercial food waste disposal ban. So the way we designed that is to focus that on larger businesses and institutions that have large amounts of food material, really for two reasons. One, because that's where you can get the most bang for your buck, literally, that they can divert that material more cost effectively. And two, that it's also easier to control quality of the material, ensure that you're getting a good, clean food waste stream that can really be very valuable for our anaerobic digestion and compost facilities.
Right.
So that ban's been in effect for a little bit over 2 years now. Seems to be going very well. We've seen continued growth in our infrastructure, both facilities accepting the food material, but also companies that are hauling the food material. And we've seen a lot of success stories from businesses that have been able to divert food material from their trash and reduce their disposal costs.
So that would be, when you say large users, that would be folks like universities and hospitals. Are there other sorts of facilities that are covered by that?
Yeah, exactly, those types of facilities.
Yeah.
So the threshold is that to comply with the ban, you cannot dispose of a ton or more of food material per week.
Oh,
And so that would include
Large.
places like basically large food service operations, colleges and universities, hospitals, food manufacturers and processors, supermarkets, large restaurants, but not most restaurants. So entities that have really, really large food service operations.
Okay, great. So we actually have a photo of Dave's
Deer Island facility.
operation of Deer Island. Yep. So we've got a couple of your windmills in the photo, and can you tell us a little bit about, it's the anaerobic digesters are there on the left?
Correct. Yeah, each one of those digesters stands about 140 feet tall and about 90 feet wide at its widest point. So it's egg-shaped. It's actually structured that way to actually make it a more efficient operation. It actually requires less energy to provide mixing capability to make sure that all the bugs that we are growing beneficially to do our anaerobic digestion actually stay in contact with the food or the undigested material or wastewater sludges that get fed into it.
You mean very small bugs?
Correct. They're microorganisms that you could see under a microscope, but you couldn't see it to the naked eye. But they're actually what do the bulk of the work for us. So all we do is give them the right conditions for them to thrive. Wastewater sludges will remain in those digesters for anywhere from 18 to 22 days. And 55% of the solids actually get reduced entirely and generate a huge amount of digester gas for us. On average, we feed about 240 tons of material each day into those digesters, and about 140 tons of digester gas actually come out of it, and only about 100 tons of undigestible material actually come out and have to be converted to a fertilizer pellet. So there's a lot of benefits to anaerobic digestion because, one, you get the volume reduction on the solid material, you get the renewable fuel with the digester gas, and you also eliminate a lot of greenhouse gases. Methane in particular, when you break down any organic material, is 20 times more concentrated of a greenhouse gas as CO2. So when you think about it, the amount of material, even though we're capturing and beneficially using 140 tons of gas, we get the equivalent of about 1,700 tons of CO2 equivalent. So that's a huge savings on greenhouse gas emissions. And that's every single day.
Right, right. And to your point, Amy, about the other digesters in the state being about the same equivalent, I assume that they're saving about as many greenhouse gases as well.
Yeah, it's probably comparable.
Yeah.
Haven't done the exact calculations.
Yeah, sure, of course. That's fabulous, though. It's nice to know that not only are you taking it out of the waste stream, but you're also preventing it from going up into the air. And I know that, so you've got 12 of those egg-shaped.
True. Yes, we have 12 egg-shaped digesters, each of them being 3 million gallons apiece. I didn't mention that earlier.
Wow.
We actually only use 8. So we do have some reserve capacity. Always have to keep, with any large wastewater treatment plant, we are the second largest treatment plant in the country. So you always have to have reserve capacity in case things go wrong. So you can always move over and shift your operation accordingly without having any impact to your operation. So we do have some expansion capabilities in our anaerobic digestion system, but we are at max capacity on our digester gas production. So, so we would have to expand if we were going to get into food waste or any other expansion type process. We would have to expand our gas systems to be able to beneficially use that material.
I know, because you and I have talked about, like, is there any way that we could do curbside composting and get you, more food waste?
MWRA was actually on the path to try to get food waste into the food waste business. However, we are in a very remote site. It's not easily accessible.
You have to, if you're
you
going to
have
drive
to
it
come
in,
through
you got to
the
come
very
through
narrow
Winthrop.
streets of Winthrop. Too much of an impact on the local community to start bringing in 9 trucks a day of material. So the only way that we could actually use that material would be if we could barge it, and unfortunately that adds a huge amount of overhead to that operation. And obviously we're primarily there to treat wastewater, so so we have to think about our ratepayers and making sure that there are benefits to the to our ratepayers on everything that we do, and if there's any potential distraction or additional costs, then we can't afford to get into it.
Of course, I'd still like to figure out some way to get you guys.
We're still talking. We're not
but,
out of we're not out of it entirely. We're watching the industry very tight, talking with John on a regular basis to find out exactly how the industry is developing, and we're keeping our eye out because it might become cost beneficial.
Yep, great. Well, so what I'd like to turn to now is, you know, the folks that are out in TV land watching this. are probably thinking, well, this sounds great. How can I be a part of it? How can my town be a part of it? So I guess if somebody could tell us a little bit about, I know that both of you have talked a little bit about some of the options for towns, for businesses. You know, there aren't a whole lot of options for the individual household level, but if you want to talk about how could folks get involved, how could people be making sure that their food waste goes into making electricity instead of just going into the landfill?
Sure, I'll start with that. So we, in Massachusetts, we do have 10 municipalities now that are doing curbside collection of food materials. Right now, those are all going to compost operations, but there's certainly room for that material to go to anaerobic digesters in the future. That would require a little bit different infrastructure. As we saw in the pictures, the material at Jordan Farm was being introduced from a tanker truck. So you need, to make that happen, you need an infrastructure to either grind the